The Hudson Library and Historical Society presents award-winning WKSU reporter Kabir Bhatia speaking about the revival of vinyl records on VinylNight. Held at the Hudson Library's Flood Meeting Room on March 31st, 2014. Now, here is HCTV's Up Late host, Kabir Bhatia.
Hello, welcome to VinylNight. Thanks for being here. All right, tonight's speaker is an award-winning reporter and producer at 89.7 WKSU. He's the host of Up Late on Hudson Cable TV, and he is an avid record collector. Kabir Bhatia.
Thanks, Katie. Welcome, everyone. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is a good turnout. I like that we have a large range of demographics and different types of folks here. Maybe we'll just start out real briefly. I just want everyone to just shout out as best you can. What was the first record you bought? Does anyone remember? Anyone?
Tiger Rag.
Too old to remember. Tiger Rag?
Tiger Rag.
Okay, sounds dangerous. What else?
Beatles.
Beatles for Mrs. Turkle.
Donovan's Greatest Hits.
Donovan's Greatest Hits. That one, that's one of those ones you always find it in the used record stores in good condition, and they always sell. They're in and out, I hear. So it's a good album. Yes?
An old Enrico Caruso.
Enrico Caruso, okay. Were those the ones?
So many years ago, I forget.
It's 78. And they would, originally, if you remember, they would give those away. Yeah, if you bought a Victrola, they'd give you a stack of Enrico Caruso 78, sort of like, you don't want to take the Victrola home with nothing to play on it. How about you, John?
Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed.
Okay, Let It Bleed, that's a good album. Anyone else? Anyone else remember? A lot of folks don't remember. How about you, sir? We're shouting out what's the first album or record that we bought.
Oh, the first record I bought. I'm a guitar player.
Okay.
I can't think of the guy's name now, on the spot.
Is it from here?
No, Cincinnati, Ohio. I was on Fraternity Records. It was only locally released at that time, 1963, fall of 64. 63. I can't think of his name.
I can't either. We'll Google it later. How's that?
Big guy plays a black flying V with a big speed vibrato.
Lonnie Mack.
Lonnie Mack.
Oh my goodness. Hey, look at that. Good. Now,
I heard him on the radio in Cincinnati in the back of my parents' car.
Right.
I've got to find out what this is. Went to a record store, bought all three of his 45s that were out there, and they weren't available anywhere else yet. Just Cincinnati area. And that started me playing guitar, but playing ever since.
oh, pretty good. Now, of all the records that I heard, how many of you still have that first record? Oh, I think everybody. In the back, sir, I bet you remember your first record. Yes.
Raunchy. Bill Justice.
Oh, okay, yeah, good one. That's. Do you still have that? You said you did. Okay. So, of all the folks who are here now, just this survey, how many of you are here because you're looking to cash in on this gold mine of vinyl you have at home? Anyone? No? Okay, good. You're here to enjoy your records, I hope, and find out what's going on lately. So I'll give a brief history of records and how they came to be for those of you who aren't familiar. 1877, Thomas Edison. Who remembers Thomas Edison? Yeah. He created the cylinders, and you've probably seen cylinders. It looks sort of like the toilet paper roll, literally a little bigger, and it would spin, and it had the horn on it and whatnot. And that was the first records. About 10 years later, they went to flat records, and those were 78s. And I'll show you here. For those of you who are out there crate digging, that's what it's called when you go to garage sales and attics and thrift stores and dig through the stacks of records. Here's a 78. They were about this size, a little smaller than an LP, a little bigger than a 45, a single. Who doesn't know what a single is? Okay, one person. No, he's kidding. So the 78s were like this. They were one-sided initially, and someone thought, wait a minute, we can put stuff on both sides of this. Let's do that. So they went to 78s, and this is where we get the term album. A lot of you, well, some of you may not realize, it was literally an album like this with pages in it, and they would put the records in, the 78s, and this is how it was for about 60 years. You'd get, well, how many pages are in this? Maybe 8? So you could get 16 songs into one of these, which is about how many songs you have on a record album, an LP, something like this. The LP is probably the one that most of you see out there when you go crate digging or to record stores. And for 60 years, you had the 78s, and then for about 60 years, more like 40 years, you had LPs. And then the dreaded compact disc came around and wiped out LPs from the face of the earth. Now LPs have come back. That's why we're doing this event. That's why they've got things like Record Store Day, which I'll get to in a second. And vinyl sales in 2013, I believe, were more than they were slightly than 1990. So the curve, it's from 80s, they were going down, 90s, and now they're back up in 2013. I'd say in the last 5, maybe 10 years is when they've really rapidly gone back up. So I'm going to show you now a video of how, not that guy, let me see, how vinyl records get made. Here we go.
While CD sales are going down the toilet, surprisingly, vinyl sales are going up. They're expected to go up 25% this year. So to find out more about this vinyl revival, we are here at Brooklyn Photo, one of the few places that still presses records.
We've been around for 10 years now, and we entered on the decline for vinyl as a commercial format. So we're just reviewing it for the vinyl. Each time you play the record, it really is a unique experience each time. A little bit of dust, no dust, the train goes by. It would be that one unique play. It wouldn't really be a replica like an MP3 can replicate. So it had a physical process from the artist, and I was the vessel to create something that you can hold, a tactile object.
And so if I was either a solo artist or a part of a band and I wanted, some records pressed by you guys, what would I have to do to initiate that process?
Well, first, get your material. So whatever you've created, as long as you have it in some format, and we'll cut the lacquer for you, which is an aluminum substrate with a cellulose acetate, like basically a glorified nail polish layer on it, and then we'll send that off to the electroplater. And that's where we get the metalwork, and
that's what presses onto the...
That's what gets affixed into the machine. It's like making a cake, where you start out with flour, and that would be the polymer, and then you blend it up to the point where you have like dough. We squeeze at 2,000 pounds, and we heat it up to 350 degrees for several seconds. And then once we've pressed all the information and cured it, we will then transport it into the trim station. Excess material will be cut off.
Can I see it?
Nice and cool.
No, it's really warm. It's almost like hot to the touch. I noticed a microscope, or at least what looks like a microscope.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of that?
That's quality control. The first record that we take off of the top of each pile, in the light, if we see any fine lines coming across, we look at it under the microscope and identify it, and if there's a problem, we'll stop it.
So rumor has it that some of your employees are in bands, and that they actually are allowed to rehearse here.
I'm all for encouraging everyone. We don't feel the stress to leave work. We're actually happy to come, and if you want to have a beer after the day is done and create some music, I'm all for it. I'm thrilled. The vision for Brooklyn Photo is just to stick around and make good product and be here and be the vessel for the art.
So that was Brooklyn Photo. I have a nice little souvenir. It's a white record. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to share it with your friends. And for more music-loving coverage, you can see more videos just like this at hughes.tv.
Never touch a record the way he was touching that at the end, by the way. And most of you probably know that. This is how my dad taught me to do it, which was boop, like that. So if anyone doesn't know, see the label, the edge, good stuff. Because you do not want to get it dirty. One thing that I neglected to mention as I was watching that, I realized and I wanted to confirm. Does anyone know who invented the substance vinyl? Anyone? Mr. Vinyl. That's his middle name. No, his name is actually more hilarious than that. Forgive me, my mom's here. His name's Waldo Seaman. I'm not kidding. But he's from around here. He worked for B.F. Goodrich, and About 100 acres of the Metro Parks is named after him because he donated it to the Metro Parks. So the next time that you're out there, you can think of records. Anyhow, that's how records are made. And we actually have here in Cleveland a pressing plant called Gotta Groove Records. And they opened, I think, in 2008, 2009. They got a bunch of old presses from a company in New Jersey that just did odd jobs of pressing vinyl. They brought them back here, put them back together, and the operation roughly looks like it's almost as big as the place we just saw. They've been doing really well. Black Keys records are always pressed there, I believe. Trying to think, all sorts of records are pressed there. They do all sorts of, you go to them with your tape or your CD and you say, I want a record made, and they'll do it, unless it's something you've stolen or whatever. But they're right up in Cleveland, right on the east side. I forget exactly where. And they've been doing gangbusters work. There's, by the way, a story about them and how NASA is helping them to be more efficient and whatnot. NASA Glenn Research that we did at WKSU. So when you get home, you can Google that story and look it up. So 1948 is when the vinyl story starts. The 78s that I showed you earlier, those are made of brittle shellac, and you'll often see those at garage sales, thrift stores. You'll run into them. And typically you'll go through them and you'll find a ton of Benny Goodman. You'll find a ton of Frank Sinatra, probably. What else? Bing Crosby is always in there. Right, Guy Lombardo. There's always some foreign ones. This is Mr. Frank Youngworth. He has tons of 78s. So if you need any, see him after the show. You got rid of the 78s. He has. That's terrifying. Yes, you see this? 78 would be broken by now if I had done that. This is made of the nice flexible vinylite that Mr. Waldo Seaman invented. And as you can see, it's blue, right? Pretty radical. They also make them in the standard black. There is purple. There's a Prince one, Purple Rain, that's purple, but I don't have that one. Orange, and this is one of the ones that was illegal. This is Rolling Stones one. Somebody ran off, I don't know how many copies of this a few years ago in somewhere in Europe. It's 2 rare unreleased tracks, and they weren't supposed to do it, obviously, and they stole the logo and everything. They'd be in big trouble if they got found out, but, the trail is cold. No, I did it. And then there's red. Who doesn't like red? But that's starting in 1948 when vinyl and long-playing LPs came into being. The 78s had 1 song per side. The LPs have, 5, 6, 7, about a half an hour per side, depending on how it's mastered. And that's when things went nuts for the music industry, and the music industry started growing and exploding. There was the War of the Speeds. You probably know about this, right? 33. Yeah. So anyone, quick math, 78 for the 78s minus 33. What does that equal? Anyone? 45. And that's the small 45s. And you can, for people who don't know, who are out there crate digging, as I keep saying, there's a little comparison chart for you. Isn't that nice? So you've got the 33s, the 45s, the 78s, and then the gross CD. We won't worry about that up top. So you're probably wondering now, how many of you have a CD player in your car? Or rather, how many of you don't have a CD player in your car? Yeah, everybody probably does. Ever tried to play a record in the car? Anyone? It's not happening because it'll skip, obviously. But the CDs, that's the most portable thing. You don't have to keep CDs clean, really. Yes.
I was going to mention, if you don't mind, since you have those records up there, there is one other speed that was never sold on the open market, but those of us who worked in radio stations back in the 50s, 60s, they were very large discs that were half-hour programs, and as I recall, those ran at 16 RPM, 16 and a half RPM.
Some old turntables, you'll still see the 16 speed, and they were for either the big 16-inch transcription.
It was not the best, but that was a way to make public service programming and so on that they would give the radio stations to promote their cause.
They also had records for the blind. They would read stories and stuff onto records at 16, or for children's records, they would have those, and those would also play at 16. Once in a while you'll find those. Yes?
Guitar players used to play 33s at 16 and learn their guitar part.
Learn the licks, see? You can't do that with a CD anymore. I'm telling you, records are so much better. Plus, who really wants to learn a guitar lick of Katy Perry, right? You want to learn Elvis's guitar licks or something like that. Elvis was a popular singer.
I can interject because he gave me the idea. Anybody's interested in this. There was a guy here in the Cleveland area back in the 40s named Gene Carroll.
Oh, yeah.
And he had his own little record company, And he used to make records in such a manner that he messed with the speeds when he recorded it and made it sound like animals. And to this day, I think that, what's his name, who had the Chipmunks?
Oh, David Seville?
David Seville, Russ Bagdasarian, I guess is his real name, but that he stole that idea. I really always felt that way.
Yeah.
Gene Carroll used to do that back on WDOK, like 1949-50. Playing around with the speed when they read.
That's true, yeah. And then you can make it faster and slower. So that's why sometimes for the kids, I'll put on one of these, but I'll play it at 78. Oh, let's do it now. We can do it. I'll just do it. All right. So this is normal speed. This is the White Album. Here, let me pick something that's a little more lively. All right. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is so funny. Don't tell anyone I did that. If the RIAA calls, that never happened. So yes, there's the numerous speeds. I'll just leave that up. There's the numerous speeds. And so what I was getting to is with CDs, you don't have to really keep them clean. If they get scratched, you either have a horrible catastrophe of no sound, or you can make a copy of it, that sort of thing. Records, you have to keep them clean. Someone likened it to me once. The amount of pressure down in a record groove with the needle on it and whatnot is as if a huge boulder was in the way of a balance beam and someone's walking towards it. Well, if that balance beam is the groove, and someone walking towards it is the needle, and the boulder is a piece of dust, imagine kicking that piece of dust and destroying the bowling beam, the balance beam. I have no idea what I just said, but it's really bad to keep records dusty. So you always have to keep them clean. Scratches are bad. So why, and you can't take records in the car, why would you ever want to go with vinyl records instead of CDs? Well, I think all of you are here right now because you prefer either the sound, the tactileness, the type of music. Maybe you like going out and digging through crates as I like to. Actually, let me just ask you, why do you like vinyl? John?
Warmer sound.
Warmer sound, okay.
Much higher quality over CD.
A lot of times higher quality, sure. Anyone else?
You don't have the compression that CDs have.
Right.
They lose the fidelity that way.
That's true. CDs, they encode it with ones and zeros, and it's hard to explain, but this is something that's not, there's no off position. The signal just goes in and it's never really has to be compressed. There's no filter that cuts it off above and below a certain point as they have on CDs. So that's some of the numerous reasons why you like them. But I like them because you get the nice big album art. You can, when I got this album, for example, somebody had gone to the Imperial Palace in Las Vegas and got this of Elvis's last car, allegedly, that he had bought, this Cadillac, and they shoved it in here. So I was thrilled when I found that.
The big picture, the culture of the album that included the cover artwork.
Exactly.
And the theme, the concept of the whole album. Not just individual songs.
Plus, you'd get cool stuff inside, like posters.
Sgt. Pepper.
Sgt. Pepper had a sheet of cutouts. What are some of the other ones? Sticky Fingers, the Rolling Stones, has a zipper. There's a Monty Python album, I'm drawing a blank on the title, but depending on where you put the needle down at the beginning, there was 2 sets of parallel grooves, and you'd hear, if you put it down here, you would hear one recording, and if you just happen to nudge it a little, you'd hear an entirely different recording, all on the same, embedded on the same side of vinyl. Yeah, and I don't know why nobody else ever did that. That's the only one I know of that was like that. And of course, guitar players, as you mentioned, could slow it down and they could learn things. Or you could play stuff backwards. Here, this is a good one. It's actually, is it on this side? It is. Okay, supposedly this is the Paul is Dead, Miss Him. Does everyone know about this? No? Okay. There was a hoax that Paul McCartney had died and there was clues embedded in all these Beatles albums. And this is one of them. Sounded like he was saying, miss him, oh my God! That's how people would amuse themselves 40 years ago. But he didn't really say that, and Paul McCartney is not really dead. So, thankfully, that he's not really dead. So, those are some of the reasons I think vinyl's pretty interesting. And I keep mentioning going out and finding the records and stuff. So, any of you buy vinyl currently, or have you in the last 2 years? Where do you get it? Besides the internet, where do you get it?
Thrift store.
Thrift stores. Okay, that's a good one. Who else? Where do you get them?
I buy them at shops, you know.
Vinyl shops.
The new ones, I guess.
We're lucky in this area. I used to live in Chicago. I moved back here a few years ago. And I find that maybe, I don't know what's the word, not per capita, but density-wise, we actually have a lot of vinyl shops. There's 2 really good ones in Kent. There's Square Records in Akron. Music Saves is up in Cleveland, right? Record Exchange, if you ever see those, oddly enough, every one of those, or they're called CD Exchange now, but they still have a lot of records in the back, sometimes hundreds of them, for $1 a piece. Thrift stores that you mentioned, a lot of times you'll go to the thrift stores and there's tons of Barbra Streisand albums, tons of the Firestone Christmas albums that they used to give away. What are some of the other ones? Barbra Streisand, Christmas, Pablo Cruz.
The comedy album about the Kennedys.
Yes, The First Family is always in there. Yeah, everyone dumped their copies of The First Family because they didn't want to think about it. Yeah, Frank has a copy of Everything's for Sale. Oddly enough, I've been finding a lot of Red Fox albums lately. Does everyone know who Red Fox was? He was a filthy, hilarious comedian from Sanford and Son. And I've found, I don't know, a dozen in the last 6 months in the bins. And they're always, you can tell they're always on red vinyl, like, ooh, beware. You know, you don't want to have the bad stuff entering your ears. Rarely will you find anymore, it seems like, Beatles albums, Rolling Stones albums. And almost never will you find something like Green Day, Nirvana, who else? Later Michael Jackson. And the reason for that is, as you probably know, is the 80s wore on and then into the 90s they stopped making vinyl. There's very little of it made. This, for example, this is from, when is this from? It says on here. This is probably from 1998, 1999. And they would only make a few hundred copies, and a lot of times those would go overseas, or they'd be made overseas, and they'd send a few of them over here. Nirvana's first album, Nirvana's getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tomorrow. Their drummer, by the way, is from Warren. Does everyone know that? Dave Grohl. His mom lives right here, or his aunt lives right here in town, by the middle school. But Nirvana's first album, I don't think they pressed any of them on American vinyl. They made some in Europe, they sent them over here, and now they're, of course, worth a lot of money and impossible to find. So when you go to these thrift stores, it's good if you're looking for, like I said, music from maybe the 70s, 80s. If you want Saturday Night Fever, there's always going to be a copy of that in there somewhere. I found a sealed copy of Saturday Night Fever a few months ago, oddly enough. Like, who wouldn't open that and play it? It was such a popular thing. Do you know what I'm talking about at all? Yeah? How about in the back? Saturday Night Fever. Okay, good. So thrift stores are good places. Garage sales, I found, you know, in the 90s, around to garage sales, I'd find a lot of this stuff. But there's still good albums out there. How many of you had a garage sale and you put out records for sale, besides Mr. Youngworth? I think I came to your garage sale a few years ago, and I got some good stuff. So you go to garage sales, you never know what you're going to find. It might be all, you know, Air Supply albums, but it might be some good stuff, and that's part of the fun, going through and finding. Sometimes you'll find something you didn't expect. I bought a Kiss album, and when I got home, there wasn't a Kiss record in it. It was a Rolling Stones, it was one of these deals where it was an illegal bootleg one. That was shoved inside, so I was pretty happy that I got that instead of the Kiss album. But as far as the late 80s and then the 90s, early 2000s, that vinyl when there wasn't very much, you're going to have to go to eBay for that, or Amazon, or places like that. The Hudson Library used to have tons of vinyl, and they'd have them in the...
Sold them all out.
Yeah.
They had a big sale over a several-week period.
There you go. They used to have them at the book sale, though, right here, and some book sales still do. Katie's going to get right on that, right, tomorrow. Come on, friends of the library, let's bring the records back, no? So those are a few of the places you can go, but if you've got all these records, how are you going to play them? Who has a working... Again, besides Frank Youngworth, who has a working turntable at home? Oh, you all do almost. Yours is busted, Mrs. Turkle? Okay. Do you know what's wrong with it?
I don't even have it anymore.
Oh.
I went to, what happened after vinyl before CDs?
There was cassettes, which are also coming back.
That I just said.
Yeah.
The cassettes are coming.
Cassettes are coming back because there was, again, like a renaissance of DIY, indie rock, these people, and they've decided it's cool to get the lo-fi sound of the cassette, and they run off copies and swap them, which is, you know, what they did in the late 70s and the early 80s. That was the only way, really, to swap music efficiently, was on cassette tapes. So it's slowly coming back. There's a label, I think, that's just releasing cassettes now, but not nearly like vinyl is, and thank God, because I hate cassettes. I don't know about you. Did you have cassettes growing up? Yeah? How about in the back? Cassettes were probably before you guys. Yeah, you went straight to CDs. Well, that was good. CDs aren't that bad. compared to cassette tapes, or 8-track tapes, God forbid, which there's maybe 3 8-track tapes that are worth a lot of money, so don't get excited if you find a stack of 8 tracks. There's, who knows? Who's got one of these at home? Huh? Doesn't work? You've got one?
I got one. You want it?
No, I don't. These things.
What, is there a brand name on that one?
Not on the photo. Probably a Magnavox.
Philco.
Something. So you can see at the bottom the speakers that are built in. There's a turntable on the top. I believe that is an 8-track player, and with the tape sticking out. And there's a radio, of course. And these things were monstrosities that people wanted. They wanted it to look nice. Everything's out of sight, out of mind, which is good. But one of the main problems, you can see the speakers and the turntable are fused together mechanically. So you turn it up a little louder and it shakes the needle and it starts to skip and the sound's not good, and all of a sudden, I actually met somebody from Great Britain once who said there's a name for that over there. They call it howl round. So, I don't know. Sounds like a Scotland Yard thing. Yeah?
You've been talking about some records being valuable and some not. Where do you go for figuring out the value of something?
I don't actually ever sell my records. No. I'm getting to that because Katie helpfully brought down a big selection of books. On the bottom shelf there, you see the 2 books on the left, Record Album and American Records. Those are good guides for figuring out what your records might be worth. Now here's the thing. Whenever I hear someone saying I'm going to invest in records or I'm going to sell mine for money, I cringe because there's very few records out there that you're going to sell and send someone to college with. Typically people are looking to go to a garage sale or a thrift store and buy records for 50 cents, $1, or they want the premium sealed brand new or specially graded excellent condition copy of something, and they go onto the internet and they confirm with a dealer to make sure. In between, there's the vast range of people who hope that their records are worth tons of money. And those are good guides. One of the problems with them is that they're printed on paper, so 5 years from now, the values in there will be even less.
2010.
2010.
I could find.
So there you go. And there's nothing wrong with them as far as for a reference guide. And they'll tell you, this Buddy Holly album, there's 2 versions. One has the title printed in red and it's worth 5 times the other one, things like that. Or this Sly and the Family Stone album has all the songs mixed differently, so it's a lot more valuable and rare than the other one.
Are there internet sites?
There are, and I was going to say, they caution you in the front of the book, don't go to the internet to establish values, but that's actually probably the best way to do it anymore. You can go onto eBay and see what stuff is selling, what it is sold for. The mistake people make is if you go on and you see someone's got this album listed for $1,000. Well, that's what they want. They're not going to get $1,000. So using the books with the internet is sort of a good guide, but most records that most of us have in our collections, the most valuable ones like maybe our Pink Floyd ones or maybe some Beatles ones. If you have 45s, a lot of times no one in here looks like they were buying indie R&B 45s in the early 1950s, but if you were, those might be worth a lot of money. But typically I find most people just want to get vinyl because they like the sound, the tactile feel, they like playing the records, and they enjoy the music, some kind of music. They're into it enough that they want to have a big turntable, and that they have to keep an eye on the needle and make sure everything's clean and that it sounds good and has the special amplifier that you need for it. I'm getting to all the technical stuff in a second. But if you do want to sell them, a lot of times if you've got a ton that you're just like, I want to sell these, probably take them to one of the stores I mentioned. Independent shops. These are guys that love records, they love music, and they'll go through them and say, well, this copy of Donovan's Greatest Hits, it's in perfect condition, I can give you $4 for it or whatever. And then you can go from there.
That's about what I paid for it.
Yeah, back then, LPs listed for $3.98, tapes for $4.98? Yes.
I was going to say, when you look about the records that have the most value, they are normally the ones, a lot of garage recordings that maybe there were 100 printed, may have far more value than the ones you have that you think are valuable. My son makes a living selling records on eBay out of Chicago, all over the world. And some of the biggest things he ever got were ones that you'd never heard of in your whole life. And that's what collectors who want to get things that are willing to spend big money are willing to pay for. So you might say, well, I got this wonderful record of the Beatles singing some song that I just have loved from the day I was born. Keep it, because you're not going to get it again.
Better that you enjoy it. There are, I bet everybody in this room knows about this, right? Who doesn't? Okay, good. So you all know about this. This is probably the best-selling, valuable album that there is out there, and I'll bring it down because it's gross looking. But that was the controversial Beatles album cover that was out for maybe a day or two, and somebody came to their senses and said, we can't put this in the shops. Are we nuts? And they brought them all back and pasted a new cover over it. So they're still out there, people. That you know, you've got the album with the new cover, which here, I'll show you that.
The way to tell, what's the right one?
This is the album Beatles Yesterday and Today. They just put it back out on CD, 1966. And this is what the actual cover that most of you have probably seen looks like. It's called the trunk cover, this. They pasted this over the old one, sent them back out. And then they stuck with this cover when they kept it, you know, for the next 20 years when you bought a copy.
The trick is knowing that you got the real legit thing without trying to tear anything off, because then you ruin it.
I guess if you look at your copy and see Ringo's sweater here, that bleeds through. So if you can see this little black V, I guess it'd be what, over here? Then you know, oh, I might have one. And there's a very special way to peel off this new cover. There's probably not a lot of them out there. I'll bet everybody in this room, if you've got this album at home, you don't have the one with the butcher cover underneath. But a few years ago, they found, I think, 6 of them that were never opened with the original cover, the butcher with the gross stuff. 6 of them brand new sealed in the closet of a guy whose father was the president of the record company. And those are the ones, you know, when are you going to find a find like that again? Those are the ones that are worth now $20, $30, $40, $50,000. Yeah, that's what they were worth then. I have no idea what they would go for now, but a lot. And
how much somebody's willing to pay for it?
Let's see. It'll take me too long to look up, but I feel like $17,000 was what one of them sold for the first time, and that was 20 years ago, so it's just been going up since then. That's one. There's a Bob Dylan album that's got 4 songs that they accidentally put on, the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. I don't think anyone that I know of has ever seen a copy in person, so these really ultra-valuable records are, I hate to say it, probably not going to turn up, or they're fished out, that sort of thing. But there are good records out there to listen to. I think every single one of these I've shown you tonight, except for this one, I paid $1 for each of these when I bought them a few years ago. This one was free, so I don't remember why it was free. That's pretty weird. Maybe I got it from work. I don't know. And then this white album was for my dad, so if any of your dads have the white album, ask him for it. But that's basically what you look for when you're collecting, to answer your question in a roundabout fashion. Now, were there any other questions? Oh, I hate to keep rifling through all this. So we mentioned turntables. You've all got turntables at home. And if you've got one and it's not working, I bet you one of 2 things is wrong. It needs a needle, which you probably all remember having to change needles. Be careful of them. Don't jump or it won't skip, or it'll skip, that sort of thing. Or it's got a belt underneath, the belt that drives it, has disintegrated, stretched, broken, something like that. Both of those things are available pretty readily on the internet, even on Amazon. And there's lots of places where you can cross-reference your turntable with the part number that you need, and you can find them. And belts are like $15, $20. Cartridges, oh, I forgot to get a photo of it. There's cartridges out there that cost as much as a new car, if not more. There's turntables that cost as much as a house. Sorry?
Because of scarcity?
Not because of scarcity, just quality. This one I have on here, it's, here, I'll show you. This one's probably $50, $100. This is a Stanton cartridge. Stanton? Yeah, Stanton. These are the ones we use at work at WKSU and all of our turntables. And they're pretty good. They're serviceable. Audio Technica, which is right down here down the road, makes some very good cartridges. Shure, they've been in business forever from Chicago. They make a lot of good ones.
I've even got some.
Yeah, I think everybody at some point has had a Shure cartridge on their turntable or looked at one. But there's a lot of esoteric brands that they can go for $5, $10. There's one I think that's just for mono records that aren't stereo, and I swear I saw that it was $5,000. And you can't see this. This is how you replace the needle on these. You take this piece out and you get a new one and put it back in. On some of these expensive ones, because of the way they're made, and I won't get into too much of the technicals, you have to ship it back to the factory and pay another few $100s to have it replaced, because it's all one piece. It doesn't come apart like that. But keeping the records clean and keeping this in good shape are 2 of the ways you can fight vinyl decay and destroying your records. They used to have microscopes. You could go to the shop, you know, and you could look and see, oh, is it time to replace my needle? But I saw one of those at AudioCraft in Cleveland. Does anyone know where that is? And they just went out of business. So I don't know what happened to the microscope. I hope they did something good with it. They didn't just toss it out. And as far as turntables, if you wanted a new one, if your old one is wobbly, warped, messed up, whatever, you don't feel like digging it out of the attic. This one here, I don't know if you can see it, but this is from Audio-Technica. This is a pretty good one. There's a company called U-Turn Audio, and it's a bunch of guys like my age who just pooled their money and designed one from scratch. That's getting good reviews. And they, again, go up. There's one that's $73,000 that I saw without the needle. That doesn't come with a needle. So the sky's the limit with these things. So if you want to get into the hobby, you don't have to have super deep pockets. This is a pretty affordable turntable, and then you get the affordable needle, and you go out and get your records for 50 cents or $1 a piece, and you're on your way. That's pretty much what you did, right?
That's about it.
Yeah. Good work. When you have a turntable, you have this one, or you have the similar one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, from Techniques. It works.
And you got yours at a music store. Even music stores sell them because you see the DJs scratching. They don't do it as much anymore, and it's sacrilege to me. But they sell these in music stores, and they sell needles in music stores. Those are two places that you can get that stuff. Guitar Center? Yeah. See? I don't recommend going into Guitar Center for much, but no, I'm kidding. If you go in there, they've got that, and they also have guitars, obviously. So for you fellas, that'd be good. But those are just some of the places that you can find out. There's a really good website called analogplanet.com, and he's all about the hardware and needles and this and reviewing stuff. And he also has cool press releases. This is coming out on vinyl. Who remembers the movie Bullet with Steve McQueen? They're releasing the soundtrack on vinyl again. And it's 2 discs, 1 disc with the music actually from the movie, and then 1 disc where Lalo Schifrin re-recorded it, you know, a few weeks later for the soundtrack album proper, and it's going to be only 1,000 copies, I think. That's on Record Store Day. Who knows when that is? Anyone? He does in the back. When is it?
April 19th.
April 19th, so a week from Saturday. If you want to go camp out on the 18th at night in front of your favorite record store, hopefully they get one of the 1,000 copies of this album coming out. And there's a whole list online, recordstoreday.com, and I even, I checked, they're going to be releasing the Pink Panther soundtrack is coming back out. REM Unplugged, Katy Perry has a special thing coming out, Ray LaMontagne. Does anyone remember Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin? He played a show with the Black Crowes, a bunch of them, about 15 years ago. It only came out on CD, obviously. They're finally releasing it on vinyl. That's going to come out. I think Ghostbusters, the theme song from Ghostbusters is coming out. And they're going to have a cool special Ghost label, which, by the way, they're filming Ghostbusters 3 here. Next summer or this summer? A few months. You know what I'm talking about, though. They made a Ghostbusters 2, and now they're making Ghostbusters 3. And he's going to be in it. So those are just some of the weird things, wonderful things they'll be releasing. But there's hundreds of discs if you go on. They're always adding them. There's nothing listed yet for... I think the Black Keys don't have anything listed yet, but I bet you they'll have something. Beatles don't have anything listed yet, but I'm sure they'll have something. So there's always all sorts of things, specials. And I caution you, if there's something you want, and you go to the store and they don't have it and you don't get it that day, don't jump on eBay and buy it that afternoon, because it's going to be marked up 7,000%. Wait a few weeks. The value will come back down, I promise, and then you can go out and get it. Are there ones that you're looking for? Anyone know what they're going to get on Record Store Day? Or has anyone even looked at the list? You were nodding in the back. What do you think you're going to look for?
I'm after a hip-hop album, and they have a cool Genesis one coming out, but I'm not sure if I'll get my hands on that.
Which one? Is it? It's not the box set, is it? No? Was it last year they had a Genesis box set of all their albums? Like their first 6, 7 albums? Maybe it was a few years ago. Anyway, Peter Gabriel's getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. I bet he won't be there. Anyone know, by the way, with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what's going on this year? They're inducting Kiss, but Kiss doesn't want to play. They're inducting Linda Ronstadt, but she's sick. They're inducting Hall & Oates, who's going to be there. Nirvana, which 2/3 of the group will be there, but the original drummer they're not letting in. And the E Street Band, I'm sure they'll be there. They live down the street. And Cat Stevens, he's still waiting for his papers to get in the country. And who else? No, I'm serious about that. There was one more. There's a big controversy. Oh, the manager of the Rolling Stones, Andrew Oldham, says today he doesn't want to come. So, yeah, he won't be there either. He's passed away. Yes. Yeah, that's who he meant, Brian Epstein. Yeah, he's passed away a long time ago. So,
And where are you going to be when they knock down these doors?
Hopefully I'll be backstage bothering the bigwigs and saying, why doesn't anyone show up for this? So, and then they'll kick me out. I don't know. And then I'll go get something to eat. But yeah, I'll be at the thing tomorrow. So, by the way, follow me on Twitter. I'll be live tweeting tomorrow what's going on, stuff like that, you know. Chuck D just brushed by me brusquely and looked unhappy, stuff like that. Or whatever happens. Paul Schaefer is eating all the shrimp. I don't get it. How fitting. Yeah, that's right. He's retiring next year. So I think that concludes my insane presentation, unless you have any questions. Anyone? Any other questions? No, about vinyl? I was hoping to play some more, but I guess here, I'll put on a record to close things out. And I thank you all for coming. And if you have any other questions, do come up. I can give you my info, contact info, Twitter handle, whatever you like. And I hope you all head out on Record Store Day and that you tune in tomorrow and listen all about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So thanks for coming. And be sure to check out all the books from the Hudson Library.
Production facilities for this program were provided by Hudson Cable Television, your window to the community. If you have comments or questions on this or any HCTV program, please leave us an email message at hctv@hudson.oh.us or call us at 330-653-2500. We'd love to hear from you.